Liberate IT is an Oracle NetSuite solution provider that has been servicing Australian and New Zealand companies since 2011.
Welcome along. Thank you all for coming to today's webinar. This is the NetSuite 101, an introduction to Liberate IT and NetSuite. So thank you for joining us. It's great to have you here. My name is Jenna Orr. I'm a business development manager here at Liberate, and I'm joined today by lovely Rebecca Paul. She is one of our senior solutions consultants or senior solutions architect now, and she's going to be taking you through the demo today. Now, there is a chat box on your screen, so if you do have any questions that do pop up, pop them in the chat and I'll get to those at the end of the webinar. So for today's agenda, we're going to be running through where's my screen? There we go. We're going to be just running through Liberate IT. So who we are, why are you coming here today to listen to us, our history, and a bit about NetSuite as well. More of a full overview of NetSuite, and then also a product overview or a demo from Rebecca. And then at the end there, we will run a Q&A session as well. So, Liberate IT, who are we? So the directors, Jim and Nick, who own Liberate IT, they've been working in the ERP space for well over 10 years. So prior to setting up Liberate IT, they saw that the cloud was kind of the way forward, and cloud ERP especially was the future. So they wanted a solution that suited different sized organizations, right from startups, which we work with, right through to full-scale organizations and growing businesses in the middle there. So that's why they set up Liberate IT. We were established back in 2011, and we are a dedicated NetSuite partner. So what that means is that we don't implement any other software, purely just NetSuite. And what that means for you guys is we've kind of seen it all. We're really industry experts when it comes to NetSuite, so you're in good and safe hands with us. So Liberate IT have worked with many companies who've outgrown their current systems. So now we're getting quite a few organizations that are moving from the likes of Xero, which was good when they're in their smaller stage, but they might have outgrown that, and the likes of MYOB, QuickBooks, and Sage, and they're looking for that next step in their growth journey. Or alternatively, they're moving away from that traditional server-based to a cloud-based solution. So as I said, we are proud to be the largest dedicated NetSuite provider across New Zealand and Australia to date. But we are a boutique-sized organisation. We're not a large corporate. We all work from home. We're all very family-orientated, and we specialise on that one product and doing that well, and that product being NetSuite. Our clients like our approach and our boutique feel because it means that our clients aren't just a number. We provide input, honest input into how we think is best to operate, and we really kind of see our customers as a valued member of an extended team, really. So really the next thing to go and have a look at is the ERP market itself. So, sorry, I think I've got a bit of a delay here on my side. As you can see, the ERP market it's a very busy place, with the mid-market being mostly heavily competed space of all. There's a product for everyone, but there are a number of reasons why we feel that the NetSuite platform is the real winner for that middle space there. First of all, because it was built from the ground up to be fully integrated solution. So what that means is there's no barrier to scale. So you might be in the beginning of your journey and you're looking to be scaling quickly. The worst thing that can happen well, not the worst thing, but one of the most frustrating things that can happen is when you're scaling up that business is suddenly you spend a whole heap of money and time implementing one software. A year, 6 months later, you've already outgrown it. So the beauty with NetSuite is we can grow and scale with you. So you're not having to waste any of that money or time and resources into continuously changing your software stack there. Another one is because it's really designed to empower business users. So the user interface and the user experience, the workflows are all constant throughout that platform, and everything is based on configurable options. And Rebecca will be showing you how that all looks later on. And lastly, it is a very mature, comprehensive product. So Gartner rates us as one of the best in that third stage consulting, etc. So there's that good track record there as well with us. So many products are going to give you a lot of straight out of the box, but if you look under the hood, whilst they do position themselves as true cloud, there's lots of little different systems all bolted on to make the end system that what you look at. And basically what that means is there's a lot of upkeep with all those different systems, and if one breaks, your whole system is broken there. So it's good just to stick to that single system that we have with NetSuite. And of course, one unified system. That's the end goal. That's what we want. What you need to stay competitive in today's world is a modern system. So one that's designed more holistically around your business processes, and it allows you to manage all the components of your back office, from complex revenue recognition, billing, to managing contracts and subscriptions. And that allows you to manage all these components from that one system. And as you can see on the screen here, everyone in your organization, from the CEO down to your admin, down to your customer service, and even your customers in some case, all have access to that same information. Of course, depending on your role and your user ability, we can make sure that people can only see what they need to see. You don't exactly want your admin lady or man seeing what the CEO is seeing. So that, again, is all very customizable, but what you can be assured of is you've got one system with all that data in it. So I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about NetSuite itself. So that was established back in 1998. There was a guy there from Oracle that actually saw an opportunity for a mid-market product. Oracle obviously has got a lot of enterprise softwares, but really for that mid-market tier, there wasn't anything really in there. And it was fully acquired by Oracle in 2016 for $9.3 billion. Not chump change. And it's used by well over now 32,000 users worldwide. So again, you can be rest assured that this isn't a product that's got no resource and development going into it. There's continuous upgrades, and you're always going to be on that latest version with it being cloud-based. The data centers, they are based in Australia, which is quite important for some. And as I mentioned before, we have been ranked the #1 cloud ERP system by Gartner. So again, just building that trust up with NetSuite being a solid product for you to help you grow your business. So who does NetSuite fit? Who does it suit? Basically everyone. There really isn't an industry that NetSuite can't work in. So whether that be manufacturing, services, software, non-profits, financial services, because of the ability to configure it to fit your personal business processes and industry, we really can fit with any organization. The next slide is going to list a whole heap of features that I'm not going to go through individually here. But what you can see is, like I mentioned before, it really does work with every department within your organization. So your CRM for your sales team, through to case management for maybe your customer support, finances and accounting, and that really robust reporting for that C-level as well. So Rebecca, again, will go through these in a bit more detail. So what's our approach? So you've got kind of that a lot of the times when you go through implementation, it can be a bit of a daunting process, especially if you are moving from something like Xero to a larger ERP. I think once you've made that decision, you do really need to commit to it. So we have a view of doing what we call a shared implementation. So that involves you on your end, fully being involved within every step of that implementation process. And that brings us to what you can see there, the NetSuite champion. So the NetSuite champion is someone from your organization who is going to be fully committing themselves throughout the implementation to be kind of the leader in your organization. So we will be training them. They will be working directly with us throughout that implementation. And what that means is that when we leave you, when we've implemented it and we've trained you all up, that NetSuite champion is going to be your internal resource for anything NetSuite. Of course, we're always going to be just a phone call away, but it really empowers our customers if they've got somebody internally that can really own that NetSuite, and you're not having to rely on an external company such as us to make changes and help you with things. So we really, really stress that as we go through our implementation. Also, all of our consultants are industry experts. So if you're a professional services organization, we will make sure that through that implementation, you're assigned an implementation manager who has worked with professional services previously. So they're bringing all those years of experience, whether that be working directly in a professional services organization, or it's just been alongside doing multiple NetSuite implementations. You can be rest assured that they know your industry, they understand how it works. And with that, they can actually consult with you on best practices as you go along through that implementation. So it's really a collaborative approach. So the full process of that is we start off with workshops. So we want to know every nitty-gritty detail of how your business currently runs and what are the processes that you go through. What are the processes that you want to keep? And what are some processes that you could actually change by implementing NetSuite that's going to make you more efficient as you go along? As I said before, the NetSuite champion training, so that's hands-on training given to the system administrator or that NetSuite champion. The configuring of the initial processes. So we've looked at your processes in the workshop. We probably had a discussion on how we can improve those. Now we're going to go through and actually configure what they'll look like into NetSuite. Then we'll ask you for all of your master data. We'll pull that data through, and then any customizations and integrations. So we'll design and do all the documentation and do all the gaps analysis and integrations there. A lot of the time, there are going to be integrations. So you've got current softwares that you are using. So it might be payroll or HR or something like that. This is when we start building those integrations into those. From there, we start to refine those processes that we started to build. So continuously configuring the processes until we have a good walkthrough, and then we go into full testing. What does it actually look like at a day-to-day of you using it? And then the UAT and training, and then we prepare to go live. So there's quite a few steps involved before you even get down through to that testing stage. And then finally we go live, and we all pop the champagne and celebrate. And then what will happen is you'll go through into hypercare. So once we've implemented it, given you the training, we don't run away and leave you. You will enter through into our hypercare, which means that you'll get a dedicated customer support person who will just make sure that you iron out all of those, all of those training issues at the beginning that might pop up. And maybe there might be a few different changes that might be needed that we didn't think of at the beginning there. So who are our customers? We've got a pretty busy looking slide here, but I just really wanted to highlight here the different types of organizations and also the different sizes. So some of these logos will probably be quite familiar with, so the likes of Xero, EcoStore, Infracore, there's some big names there, but then we've also got some smaller ones as well. So that's just to highlight that we work across size. And we also work across industry as well. And that's it from me. I can stop blabbering on now, and you can all come and see the demonstration, which I'm sure you all came here to actually see. So I'm going to hand this over to Rebecca now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jenna. Okay, so as Jenna mentioned, today we're going to run through a NetSuite demonstration on professional services. You may use professional projects in your organisation for the entirety of your business. You may be a professional services organisation, or you might just have a couple of projects that you charge onto your customers, or internal projects. NetSuite's scalable for every eventuality or every different sort of use case you have to use projects. I'm going to sort of go through the full extent of projects as if you were a professional services organisation, and talking about resourcing on projects. But you don't have to use projects in this way. They are simply just a bucket to record hours and time next to. So today we're going to run through and talk a little bit about the architecture of NetSuite. So looking at the dashboards, looking at users and different roles and how the permissions work. We're going to go in and have a look at a customer record and then a project record, how we capture time and expenses and on-bill those onto customers, and then look at some reporting around that. If you have any questions, please fire them through as we go. I'm happy to answer those. So the first thing that we see when we log in is our home dashboard. Now, everyone who has access to NetSuite will have one role. The role that you're assigned governs your permissions, what you can do, and how you navigate around the system, but also your access and your dashboard. So I'm logged in as the administrator role. I have access to everything within the system. So there's no permissions on an administrator role, and typically only the NetSuite champion or NetSuite administrator will have access to the administrator role. Everyone else will be assigned an individual, sort of dedicated, specific role to what they need to do. So I'm going to run through a couple of these little portlets. Each box that you can see here is what we call a portlet. And I'm going to run through a couple of these, and then we'll go and have a look at some roles that are a little bit more specific than this sort of generalized role. The first box that we've got here is the reminders portlet. So the reminders portlet works like your to-do list. It's a list of all the things that you need to do to perform your job, or things that you might need to be aware of. So if we run through a couple of these, we can see here that I've got an expense report to approve. I've got some time records to approve. We've also got a notification that we've got 55 invoices that are overdue. Now, these could be overdue by a day or multiple days. And these are all sort of standard reminders that come out of the box. What we can do then is put some filters and layering over those standard searches and start to define the criteria that we really want to see. So for example, I've put some criteria around our overdue invoices and said, look, show me anything that's overdue over 30 days, over $50,000. And that's really around that exception reporting. What are the exceptions that we want to know? Not necessarily how many invoices, but how many that are over 120 days, or, you can start to create your own. So essentially, the system comes pre-populated with about 120 standard reminders. And then really you can create your own reminders. So any field where we're capturing a piece of information, we can report on it and bring it through onto either a reminder or a saved search or a report. Everything that you see here is drillable, so I can click through and open up any one of these reminders that we've got here on my dashboard. You'll notice that I open up everything in a new tab because it means when I'm finished, I can close the tabs and I'm back to where I started. We can see a list of all of those different overdue invoices. I can customize this view to show any other pieces of information. I might want to show days overdue or the last contact notes, any sort of other information that could be found on an invoice or a customer record. I can pull through into this report. I can also continue to click through and drill through in them until I'm at that granular transaction. So we'll go up here and have a look at that invoice, and we can now see I'm in the invoice record that's overdue. So again, any of the information that you see here, we can pull through onto that report that I was looking at. So then when I'm done, I can simply close those two reports and I'm back in at my dashboard. The other portlet that we want to talk about is the Key Performance Indicators portlet. So this really is made up again of standard KPIs that the system comes pre-populated with, but again, it's about creating your own. What are the things that you want to manage as part of your role or as your business? And again, as long as you're capturing that piece of information, we can bring it through and report on it. Each one of these KPIs, we can have different comparison periods. So whether we're looking at today versus yesterday, this month versus last month, this month versus the same month last fiscal quarter to date. And it just shows all of the information. So again, everything here is drillable and clickable, and then we can see the percentage change for those periods that we're looking at. You'll notice here that there's a squiggly line next to each one of these KPIs. So we can simply click on those and have a look at a trend graph. So we can look at that trend graph as a bar. We can look at it maybe yearly. We can look at that weekly. And again, we can look at that information, how we're doing this year versus last year. So very, very quickly, we can manipulate that data from this main dashboard without having to go in and run different reports. We can then also take a download of that image, maybe put it in a sales report. We can export it as well. So again, you can create as many different KPIs that you want to sort of see. We can also come through and headline some of those KPIs. So what I mean by that is we might want to highlight that and make it as a headline. So we can come through and add multiple KPIs as a headline. And what we'll see is up here, we've now got a big, it's basically bringing it into focus. So it's bringing in our percentage changes into focus. So those main KPIs that we want to see, we can headline them and bring them at the top of this portlet. If we scroll down, we can see here that we've got a KPI meter. So in this particular example, we're looking at our actuals versus our forecast. So we can see our forecasted amount here is 1.6 million. We've met that, and so it is green. When we're almost at our KPI or our target, it's orange, and when we're a long way away, it's down here at red. So it's just a nice visual representation. Often salespeople or customer services use that if they have a daily or a monthly sales target, so they can see how they're going in relation to what their target is. Again, it's just a nice visualization, and you can choose any of the KPIs that you're showing above here in the key performance indicator portlet. The next little portlet that we've got here is what we call a scorecard. And what the scorecard's designed to do is give you a snapshot into a specific area of the business. So in this case, we're looking at sales and operations. We've got a whole lot of indicators down the side. Again, you can customize those and add your own indicators, and as well as your own time periods. But really it's looking at all of this information to give you a really good snapshot of sort of what's happening without having to run various reports. And you can create these for any area of the business. So it might be warehouse operations, it could be financial ratios, or it might be looking at, you know, your practice management. So what is your utilization? What are your billable hours? Those kinds of things. So again, you can bring anything into these scorecards. It's just designed in one portlet to give you a good snapshot of what's happening. We can also pull through different graphs to look at information. You know, in this case here, we're showing a monthly employee trend. Here we're looking at milestones. So if we're doing milestone billing, what are those milestones? What's due this month? What's overdue? And we can see here that all of these milestones are overdue. And then I've got a nice little chart here that's showing our billable versus non-billable time. And we can see summarized versus 2023 versus 2022. So this is really sort of an overview on the administrator dashboard, but let's go and have a look at more of a specific role. So as I said, every user will have a role. Because this is a demo, we've got multiple roles here. Typically, users won't go in and out of different roles. They'll only have one role. So we're going to come down and have a look at a financial controller role. So everything that you'll see on this dashboard is something that a financial controller would want to see. All of the reminders are around periods to close, bills to pay, invoices overdue, things that need to be approved, etc. We've also got some quick access tiles to balance sheets, trial balance, income statements, some navigation shortcuts. We can see here that the KPI meter is for sales. We've got a monthly receivables trend graph. Our KPIs are all around financial analysis, and we've got some headline KPIs at the top here. Got some nice different graphs, and there are multiple ways in which you can display these little graphs, line graphs or bar graphs. The little pie chart is just a different way to display that information. And down here, our scorecard is around all of this financial information that this business wants to see. So we've got the bank balance, revenue, EBITDA, and net income percentage of revenue. We can also see weekly cash projections. We've got some, again, monthly sales trends, all sorts of different analysis that we want to see that's going on that a financial controller would want to see. Everything on the dashboard can be moved around, so we can move these portlets around. I might want to make things bigger and smaller. I can hide the reports, hide them by clicking in the middle, or I can completely remove them. So you've got full control around how you want to set up your own dashboard. So typically what happens is we create a dashboard as part of the implementation process, publish that out to everyone with the same role, and then you can allow your users to individually configure or customize their dashboards from there, or you can lock them down so they don't have the ability to change the data around if you want sort of uniformity across people doing the same role. We can also come through and personalize the dashboard by adding different portlets. So I could come through and add a different, I might want to add a calendar portlet. You'll also see the number at the top. This says how many more times I'm allowed to use this portlet. So I can add another 4 calendars onto my dashboard. Handy if you're running, a team of people and you want to see what everyone's doing, you can add everyone's calendar to your dashboard. We can also add another save search, some more KPI meters, maybe some reports. We can also add a task list. So if you use tasks internally within the business, or maybe a phone call log. So we can see here phone calls that we need to make, or phone calls maybe that you've assigned to other people. Again, tasks that I need to do that either I've set myself or someone else has set me. So we can move things around on the dashboard. We can set up our graph or our save search, display that information, and now it's there. So the next time I log in, it will come through with these 2 additional portlets. We can also go and have a look at a different role. We might want to have a look at a save search. Sorry, I am just going to stop. I see that we've got a question that comes through. Are the calendars and tasks, etc., linked with Microsoft Outlook? Yes, they are. So how that works is any calendar or task appointment that you originate from NetSuite, it will flow through into your Outlook calendar. The same with your emails. So you can send emails from NetSuite. If that email originates from NetSuite and the customer replies back, that reply will come back into your Outlook inbox, but also back into NetSuite. And so what that means is, if you're sending a customer a copy of an invoice or a copy of an estimate, you can send that email, and that email will be attached to the invoice and the customer record. So when it flows back in, it will attach itself back into that record. Now, if you want to originate, if you want all the emails and calendar appointments that you start in Outlook, we need to get a little extension by Celigo, a third-party company connector. And so what that will allow us to do is to push those emails and calendar appointments back into NetSuite if they originate from Outlook. Hopefully that answers the question, but yes, you can have a flow both ways. Just if you want it to go from Outlook back into NetSuite, we do need to use an app by a company called Celigo. And as we go through a little bit deeper, I'll show you some of those communications and how that will look. So this is our sales manager role. Again, everything here is tailored around what a salesperson or sales manager would want to see. And then lastly, we'll go in and have a look at our project manager. So again, reminders are all about things like expense reports to approve, time records to approve, and complete timesheets, new projects being created, milestones overdue, projects at risk. Just searches looking for information that a project manager would want to see. Our KPI meters are around project billing forecasts and open projects. So everything very much tailored to a project manager. So we're going to, before I move on and have a look at a customer record and a project record, one of the key features of NetSuite is the global search. The global search works a lot like Google search, and that you can insert your entire database. So you can search records, transactions, any sort of piece of information. So I could type in and look for a customer. So we've got a customer in the system called Aventura. So if I type in AVE, it's going to bring up every single record that's got AVE somewhere in its name. So every record has a prefix, and it's the first 2 letters of that record. So I'm specifically looking for a customer. So my prefix is CU. So now it's only going to bring up my my customers with AVE in the name. So I could type in a phone number, a customer's reference number, an employee name, a contact name, really any field that you're capturing data in. So I'm going to go in and have a look at our customer record. I guess before we're going to do this, are there any other additional questions about something we've cut, roles, dashboards? Jenna, any other questions that have come in?
Yep. Questions here. Oh, you covered the 365. Did you cover does it flow back the other way? Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. No, other than that, no questions at the moment.
Okay, wonderful. So we've got our customer record here, our customer Aventura. So we've got all of our headline information. We can see here that the first tab that we've got here is our communication under messages. So these are all the email messages. So this is where we've emailed a customer and we've emailed, so Catherine is the author and you can see who the recipient is and what it's about. So this is an order confirmation. So you can email a customer a transaction, copy of a transaction, or you can just generally send them an email. If you've got the Siligo attachment and you're also syncing up emails that were written and initiated out of Outlook 365, they would also be showing here. So there's no differentiation once they're in the system. They just show all of those emails. If you're sending an email from a transaction, when I go and look at that transaction record, a copy of that email will also be under the communication of that transaction. So it shows and attaches itself to all of those various records. So you're not having to think about where to go and find the message. If it's anything to do with the customer, it will all be showing here under the customer record. We can also see a list of all of the activities. So within NetSuite, there are 3 types of activities. We have phone calls, we have tasks, and we have events. So phone calls, you can either have a scheduled phone call that you need to make at a certain date, or you can have a completed phone call that you've already had. We can have tasks, so you can obviously create yourself a task, or again, anyone else in the organization a task. And events work like an Outlook event where you can send a proper invitation to both internal members and also external contacts. So as long as you've got a contact record set up, you can send them a event request. So if we were to create, for example, a new task, we can have different types of task forms, as we can see up the top, and that will determine what fields we have to populate. So I might want to send a follow up on quote. I can automatically assign it to myself. I'm just currently logged in as Mark Collins, or I can pick anyone else in my organization. I can set a priority. I can set a start and end time. If it's got a particular start time, I can enter those. I can put some notes in for Mark, but I can also attach it to specific records. So here it's automatically come up as the company because I've created it from the company record. and I can pick any contact. So who is the contact I need to communicate with? Is it related to a case or a transaction? So I can come through here. I've just said I'm going to follow up on an estimate, but I don't have an estimate. So let's just pick this invoice. And then I can save that task. So now I have my follow-up quote task. If I had set a time to do this, that would then show in my calendar and sync back through to Outlook. Because I've attached a copy of an invoice, when I go in and look at that invoice, I will also see this task. But it also means that the person who's doing the work, like if I set myself a task to follow up on a quote and I've got that quote there, I have all of the information I need. So it's really stopping that paper trail. Then I can click out of that and I'm back looking at the customer record. So we can attach files in NetSuite. So that can be against the customer. So it might be a credit application form. We can attach transactions next to, files on transactions, any other record in the system. Under the customer record, we can also see all of the sales transactions. So what opportunities this customer has, what other transactions, whether it be sales orders, invoices, fulfillments, all of those transactions. Again, this is permission specific. So if Mark, as the project manager, didn't have access to see, say, payments, he wouldn't see those in this list. So it takes on all of those permissions. We can see the sales team assigned to the customer and all of the projects that this customer has, whether they've been closed or currently in progress. Running through this sort of quickly, we've got a financial tab that will show all of the financial information, overdue balances, current balances, payment terms, price levels, currency, as well as any specialised pricing that the customer may have. So I'm just going to move on now to have a look at our project record. So if we come in here, I'm going to look at our ERP implementation project. Actually, I'm just J1120, J20. There we go. So it brings it up in a full screen. So everything that we can see on these screens here can be completely configured and customized. We can move fields around, we can change the wording of these sub-columns, you can add additional sub-columns, you might want to have no sub-columns and have all of this just in one big field. We can add custom fields and remove fields that you've got here. Everything is completely configurable. And every record is the same. So every record, whether it's a transaction or an entity record, can be configured. So here we're showing all of the main primary information for this project. Here it's worth noting that we can have different project types. And so why that's really important is we've got a project type here called system integration. And so we can create a template that will help populate this project when we're creating it. So if we set that it's this system integration project type, we can set specific fields. And so what that might mean is we can set things like our project tasks. So I might say every system integration has all of these project tasks and a set number of hours beside each one. It might also have a specific project manager. It might also have a particular project class or project location. It can pre-populate as much or as little information as necessary. So if you've got lots of different types of projects, whether again, billable to a customer or internal, it really just helps streamline the creation of those projects. And also ensures that nothing is missed. So we've got all the overview in terms of actual work, remaining work, and the percentage through the project complete. We've got a risk level on those projects, and then some details that we can enter. This can either be free-form text or a drop-down, however you want to record that. So we can see here that we've got a set of project tasks. These need to be resourced, and so what happens is we resource these projects, the resources then enter their time, and then we can see the work planned versus completed in full. If we have a look at our resources here, I can see that we've got these resources that are allocated to the project, and I haven't resourced this project, so we've got a generic resource placeholder sitting here called AUS Trainer. And so what that means is when I come through to the resource details, I can assign these tasks to someone that has the role of an AUS trainer or has that skill set. So only those resources will be showing here in the list. So I might want to assign those to Abigail. And so I can assign her those tasks. And so once I've processed that, it will reassign her all of these different tasks. You can also reassign these other people that we've got on there. So if someone can't make it, we can reassign different projects. And so that could be the remaining of those tasks left that are assigned to that resource. We've also got attached to the project any financial information. So how we're going to bill this customer, all of the billing details, what we've billed to date, what's needed to be billed. I'll run through this tab a little bit later as we've accumulated some charges to be invoiced to the customer. But here we can see any resources, relationships, so who from the company is running this project and what their different roles are. Any communication, so again, emails, activities, any of that correspondence, we can see all of that here. All of the related records to date, so are there any transactions that have been created, any time records or expense report policies? And then down here we can have things like a budget, a P&L, some project indicators. So hey, how is this project going? I can see here that we've got some expenses that are expense reports that are unapproved. We've got some time that is missing, but all time that has been entered has been approved. So it's just a nice little to-do list essentially for the project. So one of the other things with a project record is we've got all of the information that's sitting here, but in various tabs. As well as having a home dashboard, we've also got a project dashboard. So by clicking on this little meter at the top here, we can come through into the specific project dashboard. You can also set this as the default screen when you go in and type in a project. So if I want to go and look at a project, I can always come through to the dashboard as opposed to going into the records. So you can set that up if this is how you always want to come into the project. So we can see those project indicators are right at the start, so alert us to exactly what needs to be done. We can see a Gantt chart of the different tasks that we've got to do and who are assigned those. We can see how the percentage complete. We've got some key performance indicators. Again, you can create your own based on the project, but it's all specific to this project. We can see the resources allocated and a breakdown of the P&L, all from that project dashboard. Okay, so now we're going to run through and look at entering some time and some expenses from an employee record, and then look at how that invoice that and how it flows back to the project. So I'm going to log in the Employee Centre role. So all of your employees can be assigned an Employee Centre if they don't need to have access, like a full user access. So this is really a cut down version of NetSuite. And so there are only two different types of users for NetSuite. There's a full user and then an Employee Centre user. So a full user has the ability to access all of the information in the system, but then you assign that person a specific role and that limits their permissions. With an Employee Centre license, the only things they can do in this role is enter and approve expense reports, enter purchase requisitions, and enter time entries and approve time entries. There is no other, nothing else they can really do. They can do a few activities, like maybe write a task themselves, but no other transactions. So it's a very sort of cut down version of the system, but good for your employees that only need to enter and track time and expenses. So the first thing we want to do is track some time. So we can track time in two ways. We can track time as we go on a single project, on a single task in a block of time. So what I mean by that is I want to come through, I'm logged in as Abigail, so only the customers that Abigail has access or who is assigned to, she will only be able to enter time on those projects. You don't have to have it set up that way, but in this case we have. So you can open it up that if you're not assigned on a project, you can also still enter time on it. But in this case, we've locked that preference down. So I'm going to come in and type in my customer. And although this customer had lots of projects, Abigail is only assigned on 2 of those. So we're going to put time onto her ERP integration project. And then I can enter time on a task. So these are all the project tasks that Abigail is assigned to. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some time down to some integration testing, pull through our time. It's automatically defaulted to billable and utilized. She can put some notes here. You want to do some UAT testing. And then our duration of time. So she did an hour of testing. Once she's done that, she can either save it to continue adding more and more time, or she can submit it for approval. So we can see here all the other times. So on Wednesday, she's already done 9 hours. So that was entering time individually. You can also enter time via a weekly timesheet. So this allows Abigail to add multiple time entries all at once. So we can see here and we can pick a different project. I can enter maybe some time on Friday. I also might want to add 2 hours on Thursday. Okay. So we can enter multiple time, multiple projects, multiple customers all at once. And again, I can either save that to come back to if I might need to edit it, or I could submit it straight away. So that's really how we capture time. We can import time. So if Abby had some planned time and she had planned her week, I can import that. So she doesn't have to add all of this data. She can simply just modify the difference between her planned time and her actual time. We can also copy previous weeks. So if she's doing the same thing every week, there are lots of different ways in which we can help streamline the entry of those timesheets. The second thing here that we've got is expense reports. So the first thing to note is NetSuite also offers a free mobile app. both for Android and iOS devices. And so you can enter your time and expenses via the mobile app, as well as coming in and doing it on a desktop version. So the benefit of having the mobile app is for entering expense reports. You can simply take a photo of it on your phone, upload that to the mobile app, enter your expense report and submit. So it's a very, very quick, easy way to enter expense reports. So Abby has entered an expense report here. We've got all the top details here. It's for some travel to the customer. We've allowed our expense category of airfare. So we create a whole lot of expense categories, and essentially what that does is that allows us to have GL codes in the background that the employees don't see. They just pick an expense code and it all gets coded in the background. So we can see here that it's billed to the customer, and we're going to on-bill it, and it's some flights to the customer, and there's a copy of the receipt. Okay, so now what we need to do is go through quickly and approve those final transactions and then invoice that to the customer. So I've got my travel expense report sitting here, so I'm going to come through and approve that transaction. I'm going to save that. And so now I don't have any more to approve. I'm going to come back, and you'll notice that my reminder has now removed that entry. It doesn't show on the reminders list if you don't have anything to do. So here I've got lots of different time entries. I've got 19 hours to approve for Abigail. Because we entered them, I don't need to go in and look at them. I'm going to approve those time entries. So now that we've approved, excuse me, all of those time entries and expense reports, we want to be able to invoice them out to the customer. So the first thing I'm going to do, using my recent records, so this little reminder here shows me all of the records that I have gone and accessed. I'm going to come through to our project. Now, this project here has been set up to run charge-based billing. So what that means is it runs charges. So it looks at what your charge rules that you have set up, and it applies those charges based on those charge rules. So there are a few different types of charge rules. The first is a fixed fee rule. So a fixed fee could be a milestone rule or a fixed date rule. So for example, a fixed date rule is I want to charge $10,000 every month, and I want it to run on the 5th of every month, for example. You can have the same amount every month or different amounts every month. If it's a milestone rule, once we've hit a milestone in the project, the charges will run according to that milestone. Again, same amounts or different amounts at those different milestones. We can have time-based rules, so that's what we've got for this project. So essentially, any time entry on the project that is marked as billable and is approved will generate a charge that we can invoice the customer. Expense-based rules are our expense reports. So the travel that Abigail entered, once that's been approved, that also a charge rule will be created for that. And again, any purchases, so any purchase requests or supplier bills, again, the same thing will happen. Once it's been approved, it will pull through. So what happens is the system goes through and looks at the system, and it runs charges every night. So at midnight, the system automatically runs through every project and generates the charges. Now, because this is a live demo and I have just created some transactions and approved them, I need to push these charges through so we can build them. So that's what I've just done by going generate charges. My time's sitting the wrong way, that's why it's not showing, but there'll be some charges sitting there that we need to go through and bill. So now I've run all my charges, I'm going to come through and bill my customer. So I come through to transactions, customers, and invoice billable customers. And so I've ticked all of the different types of charges or costs and expenses that we want to pull through onto the invoice. So we can set up our invoicing in multiple different ways. So in this scenario, we have set it up to individually invoice each project separately. So this customer here, Aventura, have got 2 projects, but a separate invoice will be created for each of those projects. You can switch it the other way. So you only invoice a customer and then all of the projects pull through onto one invoice. You can have either or a combination. So we're going to come through to our ERP integration project. And just while there, I do see a question, does NetSuite integrate with ProSpend, previously called Expense Manager? Yes, we do. There is an integration or a pre-built connector between NetSuite and Expense Manager. And also the same with lots and lots of those different tools, those expense apps. NetSuite does have pre-built connections into lots of those different ones. So now we're looking at our invoice, and we've got all of these costs that have pulled through. So we've got some expense travel. This was my expense report from Abigail, and we've got all of these various time entries that have come through as well. We did some report writing, some project management, some consulting. So all of that has pulled through onto our invoice that's ready to be billed. So we simply come along and save our invoice. Once that is saved, that is instantly posted in the system. If it needs any approval, it won't be posted until it's approved. So if your company has an approval process on invoices, as soon as the invoice has been approved, it will be posted and automatically emailed to the customer. So now that we've gone through and invoiced the customer, if we come back and look at our project, we can now update, and I'll do this because it does take a moment. We can come through and we can recalculate our financial data. So what that's going to do is it's going to rerun our P&L now that we've got some actual costs, some actual revenue in there. It's also going to come through and update our milestones, all of our progress. So now we've got a progress of 29.5% work complete. And so our P&L will be updated once it's run with an actual margin based on the revenue that we have just invoiced. So that just takes a moment to refresh. But once that's done, it all updates. The other thing is, again, this runs nightly to refresh. So if you're invoicing when you wake up the next morning and log in, all of your projects will be recalculated to refresh that data. So that really does bring us up to the hour. It's a very sort of high level, quick sort of version of how you might be able to use projects for your organization. But before we end up, does anyone have any questions or anything that we haven't covered? I am also happy to have a one-on-one session to cover any specifics or to give you a bit more of a customized version of a demonstration to suit your business.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And as Rebecca said, if you are wanting any further customized demos or even just a little bit more of a deep dive conversation around if NetSuite could work for your organization, please feel free to reach out and either myself or one of my colleagues will be in contact with you. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.
We hope this video gave you the information you were after. If you have any further questions, get in touch with us using the links in the description.